Yo, what's good YouTube? It's your host AG Samurai here, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm here to bring you guys another part 2. What if Deku is Shisui's reincarnation? Part 8 to the series. Thank y'all so much for tuning into this part of this What If, y'all. So, with that being said, let's get started with it. But before we do, guys, a little bit of an announcement here. Guys, sorry I didn't post much sooner. I was supposed to post on Monday, but you see, the thing was, now that I started off school, things are now getting a little bit more serious, which means I'm getting thrown way more work. And because of that, you guys won't be seeing me post as often as I can. So due to that, guys, I'm gonna have to, this is gonna now be like my official time telling you guys that I'm now cutting off the schedule a little bit. So now instead of posting like 5 videos, like 1 video per day, instead, most you're probably gonna get from me is like 3 videos per week. That's like the most you're gonna get from me. I'm very sorry, guys, but it's the changes that I need to make, mostly due to the fact that, well, since I'm now in the midst of doing school, and since school is getting way more difficult, I'm not gonna have enough time to actually make these videos. I apologize, but hey, at least you guys are still getting content. But with that being said, guys, just wanted to announce that real quick before we get right into it. So before we do, remember, if you guys hear any background noises, if you guys hear any stuttering, please just ignore it. Trust me, that'll make the video way better. Another thing is, I'll be trying to edit as much as I can, but if I'm unable to, then please ignore it. If you guys understand all that, thank you very much. And either way, besides all this, why don't we get started?
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Alright, guys, let's begin this What If. Hopefully you guys do enjoy, and either way, let's begin. We now kick off this What If with the Provisional Hero License Exam arc. Wow, that's a mouthful. And we begin with the 3 months time skip. So 3 months have passed since All Might went against All for One, and ever since then, Class 1A have officially moved into, UA. Since the fact they have been primarily targeted from the villains multiple times, they decided that they needed a way to protect the students, so they decided to move them into the dorms. And another thing that's been happening was the fact that the crime rate has been increasing. Since All Might had left the world, since he has now officially been retired, since he now lost, One for All, this means that the crime rates have been increasing, and due to that, many of the heroes that were there were now beginning to get overworked, as every single day there will be another villain attack happening in different locations, heck, sometimes even at the same time. And this was beginning to overtax and overwork the rest of the heroes, but they still had to follow through because of the fact that, they're heroes. So as this was happening, the teachers then decided that they need to start preparing the students. After all, since all these events were happening, there's only one thing they can do. And although they can't fully stop it, the best that they can do is make them prepared for it. So with that, they begin to do so. So the teachers begin teaching the students how to make their own ultimate moves, with Deku already having his own, but he decides that he's going to train with his newly Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Wow, what's with the long asses names here? Oh my god. Moving on. So thanks to this fact, Deku begins training with it, as he has to admit the capabilities of the Eternal Mangekyo, he's still not sure of them. Mostly due to the fact that he himself has never ever used it in his past life. He didn't get the chance to. But now, here he was. So using the opportunity, he begins to try to learn how to master it. By doing that, he begins to realize one thing, and it was the fact that his Genjutsus have become way more powerful. In fact, to the point where, honestly, he didn't even know if it can be considered Genjutsu anymore. It's almost as if whatever he thinks, if he channels enough chakra to his eye, he's going to make almost anything happen. To the point where it can even affect him if he wanted to. It was surprising to him, but the power of the Sharingan was really amazing, so due to that, he begins trying to study it as much as he can. With that, he even made a journal for it, pretty much trying to record as much information about the Eternal Mangekyo as he can. After all, he never knows, maybe he might actually end up getting some descendants, and maybe they need to learn about it. You know, Shisui seems like the guy who's always going to be prepared for the situation, so I can see this fitting in. But after a while of going through this training, this is when they suddenly begin to announce that the Class 1A was going to have their license exam, with everyone in Class 1A being excited, with Deku himself actually enjoying this as well, mostly due to the fact that this will give him a perfect opportunity to test out his Eternal Mangekyo, and another thing was the fact that this was also to see how the rest of the schools stack up. And also during this time, I forgot to mention, although it's not really that important, Deku does add a few modifications to his hero suit. So pretty much how he always ends up having to carry his katana. Now his katana had actually changed. It's more like a cybernetic katana. So pretty much it can whenever he wants to, he can make it disappear or just sink into the suit. But whenever he wants it to appear, he can just end up shooting it out and it would appear in an instant. So he does not need to use something Like he does not need to like carry it in a sheath and like carry it on his back all the time. This will make him move way easier and also have him be way more stealthier. So I can see this being a very big improvement for him. Not that big, but still big enough. So with that, we can now move forward to when it was finally time for the Class 1A to begin their hero license exam. So Deku and the rest of them were now currently right now heading to the arena, and as they do, they end up meeting up with a bunch of other people. Now, a few of them were quite wacky, and a few of them were quite nice, but Deku can understand that all of this was nothing more than a false. Like these were people like faking their personality, acting like they were gonna get along with them, when at the end of the day they were gonna target them. Deku has seen the situation in his past life, so he obviously was accustomed to it. As is when one of the students from a different class walked up to him and tries to offer him a handshake, telling him that it was an honor to meet them. But Deku doesn't shake it at all, instead he just bows politely, saying that it was nice to meet him as well before walking off. And of course, the student who saw this was of course upset at this, but he moved on, knowing that at the end of the day, these guys were not going to be that much big of a challenge, or at least that's what he thought. So with that, we now move towards the first part of the exams. So as all the students are now gathered up into their hero gear, this is when they then arrive at the arena, and instantly they'll be blown away by how big it is. But just before they can do anything, this is when suddenly from all sides, they'll then begin to get ambushed from the different schools. They have all teamed up together and are now hunting down Class 1A. However, unfortunately for them, Class 1A was not something you should mess with, as just as soon as they attacked them, this is when the rest of Class 1A would then retaliate, as each one of them had gotten a major boost. Now, the reason for this one was because of the fact that, thanks to all the events that have been happening, as well as the fact that, people like, Deku, someone who's actually in their classmates, have been improving much sooner. This actually pushed the rest of Class 1A to push themselves even further, due to the fact that they're striving to be heroes, and because of the fact they don't want to be left behind by one of their classmates. So due to that, I'm going to say that Class 1A is actually way stronger than they were in canon. Now, due to that, they end up deflecting the attacks and actually begin to retaliate back, with them knocking out a few players. Now, this will surprise the other classes, as this usually happened to, Class 1A or the rest of UA in general, but this was something surprising. They never retaliated back like this. So seeing the fact that Class 1A was now attacking back, they decided that there was no choice but to retreat for now, and that's what they do. Just as they retreated, Class 1A finally had enough time for a breather. They were currently right now trying to recollect their breath, as this did take up quite a bit of energy from them, but they were now pumped as they see that this exam was really no joke. As just like in canon, Bakugo and Todoroki would head off on their own, the rest of Class 1A would stick together, as this is when they would then begin to charge in. They begin to take down the other classes with no hesitation at all. And Deku would actually be helping them a lot, as he's using his newly improved Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Again, that's such a long ass name. He will begin to use his, Mangekyo to pretty much make people begin to lose the sense of awareness. Pretty much, they begin to not notice Class 1A even though they're right in front of them. And due to that, this allowed the rest of Class 1A to land these hits very easily, which of course ends up enabling Class 1A to actually pass their exam much sooner. Now, of course, this will end up changing a few things. For example, number one, Deku does not end up having the encounter with Kami, aka Toga. And the reason for this one, it's because of the fact that Toga is not participating in this one, because, she and the rest of the villains need to retreat, and they can't really exactly gain any information right now, mostly due to the fact that the heroes are really on guard on this one. Not only that, but now that Deku has been actually seen as a threat by, the villain, since Shigaraki is not going to sit quietly by while this man is just out there enjoying his life, alright? He's definitely going to make this guy's life difficult. More villains, especially the League of Villains, have heard about him, and have realized that they need to be wary around Deku. But still, at the end of the day, Class 1A ends up passing their first exam, as they then head off to the next one. And just as we do, we're now going to change scenes. As Class 1A begins to do their next part of their exam, we now change to the villains, as the villains themselves have been, honestly, the League of Villains themselves, more specifically the main group, have not been doing much. And the reason for this was pretty simple. Their leader had just been captured. And not only that, but the person who was supposed to substitute for him was currently right now in the midst of modification and training. Shigaraki will be hooked up to multiple wires and machinery, as he'll be giving multiple amount of amps and different quirks, as right now the main professor was currently right now in the midst of his work. This was a final order from All For One himself, and that was the fact that he needed to make sure that Shigaraki was a proper vessel for him. So with that, he begins to train up Shigaraki, giving him multiple amounts of quirk, while Shigaraki himself, the man has gone into Well, let's just say his personality has kind of swapped. You can think of him similar to Deadpool, like similar, I guess, as there are moments where he can become very silly, but at the same time, there's moments where he's like downright insane. It's almost as if sanity itself was like crumbling in an instant, if there was anything left. And the reason for that one was pretty simple. Since not only did he lose to Deku and had to suffer through a very ginormous amount of pain from him, but he also had to lose his father right in front of him. Now this, of course, combined with all the trauma that he suffered from his, like, well, you've seen his backstory, it's like very sad. But all that combined into this really chipped away at his sanity rapidly, to the point where there was barely anything left, if at all. As right now, at best right now, he was currently stable, but it wouldn't last for long. There'll be moments where you have intense freakouts. He barely had any time to rest. The man Shigaraki was really going through it. And right now, he was lucky right now, they gave him enough gas to actually like knock him out. And we're kind of right now in the midst of modifications. And all the while this was happening, on the other side of the League of Villains, we'll see negotiations begin to go underway. This will be from Overhaul as well as the rest of the League of Villains, as currently right now they were trying to negotiate a deal with them. Since the fact that right now they lost a lot of their power, thanks to All For One now being captured, they realized that they need more alliance, they need more people to work under them. So they began to try to recruit Overhaul. Unfortunately for them, Overhaul was not much or even enjoying even a little bit of the idea, as he laughs in their faces and walks off, scoffing. Now this would of course piss off one of the members as they try to attack him, but this is when he activates his quirk, killing him off in an instant. Now this one instantly telling the League of Villains straight up that yeah, this was impossible, we can't really work with this guy. However, this is when one of the main men, or well, main business partners of the League of Villains would then walk towards Overhaul, as we can say give him a little bit of information. And Overhaul, who actually sits there and actually begins to understand this information, and smirks underneath his bird mask. If you can actually guarantee that you'll give me that, then yeah, I'll work for you guys for now. But just hope you understand, I'm not working under you, we're partners in this one. Neither is better than the other. As Overhaul would say this, he would actually try to intimidate them by showing that he would be willing to activate his quirk at any instance, which makes them all understand. He was not playing. And seeing that his warning was of course guaranteed, Overhaul would then walk away, seeing the fact that he's now gone away more resources as well as more connections. As well as the League of Villains, who are actually happy that they now have another strong ally. So with that, Overhaul is now working with the League of Villains. And now that we have gotten that taken care of, we can now return to the rest of Class 1A, as they were currently right now in the midst of their second part of their exam, which was saving a bunch of decoys, or a bunch of prop actors. As right now, each one of them were pretending to be in danger or in distress, and right now they were tasked to save them. And Deku, who right now was actually helping them, as he begins to carry out a bunch of them with ease, as well as so many shadow clones to help out all around. The rest of the classes who were there watching him would just be amazed. Like, they were blown away by this guy's ability and his quirk. Holy crap. Just what quirk does this guy have? One of them would say, as they begin to wonder just who exactly Deku was, with a few of them actually remembering him from the sports festival. So as Deku was done, he was done helping out as many people as he can. This is when Gang Orca, as well as the rest of his, subordinates, sorry, I'm getting lost in thought right now. The rest of his subordinates would then arrive as they begin to attack, the rest of his subordinates begin to attack as they begin to act like the villains. However, just as Gang Orca was attacking, this is when Inasa and Todoroki would then arrive as they begin to attack Gang Orca at the same time. However, unfortunately, both of their attacks cancel out each other, which ends up resulting in them arguing with each other, and thanks to the fact they were too focused on each other, they'll both be attacked by Gang Orca, which results in them beginning to get beaten up quite easily. However, luckily, they begin to put aside their differences, as Todoroki and Inasa begin to team up against Gang Orca, and actually begin to do something, as much as they can to, a professional hero. However, right before they can really do anything though, and right before Gang Orca can actually release another attack, this is when Deku would then arrive. And as he does, Gang Orca would of course try to block any attack that Deku throws at him. However, what he didn't expect was a ginormous skeleton and armor like green aura released from Deku's back, as he would then punch him over the head. Now, Gang Orca would actually nearly lose consciousness from this, but just as he does, this is when suddenly the timer would then call out that this was the end of the exam. Now, of course, the rest of Class 1A would then cheer in excitement, while Deku just nods his head. Well, Todoroki honestly felt upset because he felt as if, no, he knew that he just didn't pass. So with that, the rest of Class 1A begin to return back, as well as the rest of the other schools, as they begin to announce those that pass and those that fail. And unsurprisingly, just like in canon, Todoroki and Bakugo fail, as they didn't really do a good job during this part of the exam. However, fortunately for them, they were given another makeup exam, as if they're able to pass it, they'll be given a chance to get their hero, well, not even given a chance, they'll be given their professional hero license. Now, of course, this will get Todoroki and Bakugo revved up for it as they begin to prepare for the next parts. And just like that, the rest of Class 1A will then return back to their dorms in excitement and ready to celebrate for their newly given hero license. So later on, after the exams, it will be nighttime at this point, and Deku had actually decided to walk out for a little bit of air. Today has been honestly an enjoyable experience for him as he finally feels as if he finally get a moment of peace. Throughout his entire time here, he's been working hard, he has to fight villains, he has to look out for everyone. It's been exhausting for him, he has to admit. But he's enjoying himself now as he begins to take in the nightly air and take in the nightly sky. However, this is when Bakugo would then walk out as him and Deku would just stare down at each other before Bakugo then challenges Deku to a fight. To which Deku just sighs as he tells Bakugo that he wasn't in the mood, but Bakugo was not taking no for an answer as he just attacks him. The fight with Bakugo and Deku would then hit off instantly, as Deku has no choice but to retaliate since Bakugo was not stopping. They begin to start off the fight with simply throwing punches at each other and getting into, hand-to-hand combat. And of course, to no surprise, Bakugo was losing this one. And honestly, he was impressed at the fact that Deku was able to beat him in hand-to-hand combat, but that didn't mean that he was going to give up that easily. And while Bakugo was thinking this, Deku was also beginning to notice something about Bakugo, and it was the fact that Bakugo was showing that this man was really fighting different to when he fought him the first time. Now, if this was the old Bakugo, Deku would have just overwhelmed him immediately since he did not want to waste his time. But this time, Bakugo was actually improving. He was taking a different approach to how he usually fights. While sure, he's still heading straight forward and still instantly attacking, is the way that he's attacking that Deku begins to realize it. And another thing not surprising was the fact that he was adapting to Deku's fighting style. As each and every single time Deku would land a hit on him, Bakugo will get even faster and begins to actually dodge out of the way of more of his attacks. And he's not even relying on explosions for this one. It's just pure physical abilities. Now this will surprise Deku as he begins to go even faster, landing more hits on Bakugo, but Bakugo was still adapting to it as well, just not as fast. Deku would be impressed by Bakugo's improvements until Bakugo ends up shooting off an explosion into his face, which of course Deku ends up dodging out of the way of. Now just as he does though, this is when Bakugo would then suddenly do a windmill kick directly into Deku's face. Now Deku would be sent flying as Bakugo would smirk, thinking that he hit him, only for the fact that, that was just a make-up reality. As instantly the scene would change to realize that Deku was not even there, and that Deku was already behind him restraining him. Are you done now? Now Bakugo will remember this position once again, as he remembered during the UA Sports Festival, Deku pulled the same situation on him, right before he absolutely destroyed him. And as Deku was actually preparing to do the same thing, thinking that although Bakugo had learned and had gotten stronger, he just wasn't there yet, Bakugo will soon prove Deku wrong, as this is when suddenly he ends up releasing a ginormous explosion. Now, of course, this ends up causing Deku to loosen up his grip and, of course, jump away, as he then prepares to flip over Bakugo and just finish him off instantly. But this one, to his surprise, Bakugo ends up jumping all the way up into the air and boosting himself all the way up into the air. Now, Deku would actually now watch and wondering what Bakugo was going to do next, until Bakugo would then release a ginormous explosion, way bigger than what he could possibly do, similar to that of his gauntlets, both of them combined. The explosion will be so powerful it destroys the area that they were fighting in, while Deku would actually have no choice but to dodge out the way. And by the time the attack had died down, they will see nothing more but a ginormous hole during the area where Deku was. Now at this point, Bakugo was tired as his arms were right now aching, as that took up already a lot of energy just to escape Deku's grip, and now he was currently right now trying to recover as much as he can. However, just as he does, this is when suddenly he ends up sensing Deku in a different direction, and as he does, he ends up dodging out the way of a flaming slash. Once again, Deku would be surprised at the fact that Bakugo was just dodging out the way until Bakugo ends up blasting towards him. His arms were tired, they were sore. He was really ready to drop at any moment, but he didn't give up. He threw more attacks, punches, and kicks at Deku, moving around, and although none of them really landed at all, he hadn't even damaged Deku even a little bit, Deku was impressed by the fact of how Bakugo was improving. While sure he was still unable to do anything to him, at the end of the day, Bakugo was improving. In fact, if Deku was like, let's say if Deku was originally how he was like in the very beginning of the story, then Bakugo possibly could have landed a hit on him, or at least maybe even one hit on him. So Deku was actually impressed by Bakugo's skills and talent. But unfortunately, even with all that combined, even with all Bakugo's hard work, unfortunately he was still far away from beating Deku. As just as Bakugo then finally light up another explosion which destroyed another generous part of their training area, or the area where they were fighting in, Deku would have no choice but to finally put an end to it. As after a while fighting, Bakugo would then suddenly end up feeling Deku's presence behind him, and he turns around and shoots off with a elbow directly into Deku's face. However, to his surprise though, this was not Deku at all. In fact, it was just nothing more but a smoke that looked like Deku. So as Bakugo would be caught off guard by this, Deku, or should I say the real one, would then appear in front of him, and he would end up pushing down Bakugo before sweep kicking him, causing Bakugo to fall on his back, and before he could recover, it was already too late for him as Deku would then knock him out. So as Deku would look down at the defeated Bakugo, this is when he then decides that he was actually wondering what Bakugo was trying to talk about during this fight. The entire fight, Bakugo was improving and everything, but it was just the way that Bakugo was fighting that did not make any sense to him. So with that, he decided to use the power of the Sharingan to actually look into Bakugo's memories, or just the few instances of the fight. He's not trying to like find out Bakugo's entire backstory. And this is when he finally ended up realizing how Bakugo was feeling. So pretty much, if you don't know, Bakugo has been feeling very inferior lately. Now we gotta remember something. Bakugo in the original timeline was someone who was very confident early in the beginning. He had it all. I mean, people were legit treating this man as if he was gonna be the next All Might, the next #1 hero, like as if he just blessed the earth. But the thing was, ever since he came to UA, and in this timeline specifically, ever since he met up with Deku, he lost a lot of that. He was not #1. He was not stronger than Deku. He's not even close to becoming the #1 hero. And now that All Might had retired, he seems just lost now at this point. What the heck was he supposed to do? And to make matters even worse, it was the fact that during the training camp, he felt as if he didn't do anything. Not only was he unable to defeat the first villain that he saw, but not only that, but he also got captured and had to be saved by Deku. So with all of this packed in front of him, Bakugo began to gain a ginormous inferiority complex. Something that he tried to fix by challenging Deku to see if maybe he had improved, maybe he could actually at least do some damage to him, but nope, he was completely overwhelmed. And after finding out about all of this, Deku would actually be surprised at this, as he didn't even really notice it. Like, sure, he knows Bakugo not screaming a lot, and sure, he knows that Bakugo was like becoming even stronger, but he just didn't expect all that to bottle up. As he looks down at Bakugo, he would actually smile and happy that he now understands him. And now that he understands him, now Deku knows exactly what he can do. He can now officially help out Bakugo. Now it's up to him whether or not he wants to take Deku's advice, but at the end of the day, now that he understands him, he can properly guide Bakugo to his true potential. As we turn to the next day, we will see Deku as right now him and Bakugo will be cleaning, as they had just gotten into the midst of trouble because of the fact that Aizawa had found out about what happened, saw the damage they caused, and for punishment they had to clean up. So as Deku and Bakugo were in the midst of cleaning, this is when we now turn to a different location. Currently right now heading to UA, we will see the Big 3. As currently right now they headed towards Class 1A. As we see Mirio, who currently right now was leading them, had an excited look on his face, as he was excited to see the new potential heroes. What do you think is going to go down in a fight between Mirio and Deku? How do you think exactly the interaction between those two is going to go down? And overall, what do you guys think of Bakugo's new development? It's your host, Seiji Samurai, and this is the end for part 8 of What If Deku Was Shisui's Reincarnation. Hopefully you guys do enjoy. I don't really got much to announce. I mean, I told you guys, thanks to the fact that school's starting and all that stuff, and also because of the fact it's getting more serious, I won't be posting as much, as well as the fact that my videos, like how long they are, is going to be cut down a lot too. So there's that. But hey guys, at least you still got content nonetheless. I really hope you guys enjoy yourselves. And either way, it's your host, and he's heading off. Peace, and have a lovely day.